Good morning. It's Ginny, Eli, and Tim. And today's topic's rather fun. And we called it Explain Like I'm 5. And I have a little story to go with that, just a teeny one, to explain where that even came from. But before I do that, go to our website, dstech.net. At the end of this video, after you enjoy all of our antics, you can sign up for your free security assessment there and drop your comments and questions. So what happened is our accountant was working with me on some changes, and I'm not an accountant.
Me either.
So I was like, I could not understand what they were trying to say to me.
Like the terms they were using.
Right?
And,
And I'm like, I think you got to explain like
Would you
5.
say it wasn't
So
adding up?
not in my mind, my 5-year-old brain. So that's where that came from. We were like, explain like I'm 5, because some of these terms that we use in this industry, I mean, we know all the acronyms, but
yeah,
Raspberry Pi used to make my mouth water.
yeah, fresh Raspberry
No
Pi.
comment.
Fresh Raspberry Pi is the best.
now I play video games on my Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
Yeah. So you want to start with that one?
A Raspberry Pi is simply a small computer, usually less than $100, that you can use for simple things. So a lot of times computer nerds will maybe take them and repurpose them. So for me, I'll emulate Nintendo games on them or something like that. So we have a bunch of terms in the industry, and this kind of comes from, IT. There's certain industries that just, for whatever reason, love acronyms, and IT is one of them, where they have an acronym for everything, or terms that just they throw them around all the time, where in our day-to-day lives, we just use them like they're, we know what they're used for, but we figure kind of going through some of the common terms and kind of having a very simplistic definition may help understand those who are still getting into the space, or just help learning and be able to explain it. So the first one is firewall. So you'll probably heard the term firewall, all that kind of stuff. It's protecting your network. So basically it is the gatekeeper for your computer's network, deciding who can just come in and out. So think of like you have a bouncer at your nightclub, and before anything gets into your network, that bouncer is just kind of looking at the list. So you have different rules, things like that. Encryption. So you hear that word all the time, encrypted this, encrypted that. All it means is turning information into a secret code so that only certain people can read it. So the best analogy I use is like, remember those little spy things as a kid where you maybe get a code, invisible ink, or you may have like, it's more of like the decipher, like I forget the specific term for it. I'm going to have a brain fart here, but you have the
cipher.
Yeah, the cipher itself, where you'll have like the words and then the code that go with that. And then so like, Harriet the spy or whatever would have little things like that. And so that's kind of what it's happening. It's just using a cipher encryption for your data.
Wheels that you got in your cereal box.
I was going to say, if you got enough, like, like.
I don't know what they're
I
called.
remember that too, yep.
I'm thinking Enigma too. But
Yep. So that's all encryption is sending data, and it's all jumbled up in a weird way. And so when it gets to the end, the person you're sending it to has the decoder so they can read it. And then if it gets intercepted along the way, no one else can see your data. So that's kind of encryption. Malware. So that's just software designed to harm your computer or steal your information. You might hear like viruses, Trojans, all those other different terms, but malware is kind of one of them that's commonly used for when you're surfing websites. So just it's
Not good.
Yeah, not good. Phishing. So that is tricking people into giving you personal information.
PH.
With a hook.
Oh yeah, PH.
And a worm.
Yes.
Not an F.
Not an F.
Oh.
Phishing with a
Okay.
PH. So you're tricking people into giving you away personal information by sending fake emails that look real. And again, there's all different versions of phishing we've talked about in other videos, whether it's voice phishing, social engineering, all that. But the generic idea of phishing is you're just trying to get someone to give you information is the best way to go with that.
That over 90% of cyber attacks start with an email through some sort of phishing.
It's
or
pretty
another.
high. I don't know, like at 90, I know with just ransomware, it's like 54% of all ransomware starts as an email. So if like you can train all your staff to never click links, like you're already 50% mitigated right there. So that's just,
so start there.
So
for
your
sure.
ransomware and all the other breaches, it probably does that. It could be upwards of 90% starts with an email because that's the easiest way. And so it's just human error. Someone clicks something and you trick them. So you hear the word VPN a lot, or virtual private network. It just is a secret tunnel for your internet activities. So if you're trying to get to your friend's house, you could take the main road, but imagine you had a secret tunnel connecting your house to their house so that no one can see what you're doing. That's just what a VPN is. You're sending your traffic through a tunnel.
It is completely legal, unlike the other tunnels you might have in your basement.
Yep.
Okay. There was a news story. It's relevant. Come on.
Okay.
We have
I don't watch the news.
We have two-factor authentication. So you have 2FA, MFA. More common it's MFA now because a lot of times you might have more than just two-factor authentication. But anyway,
So
it is a way.
2FA is 2, and
Yeah.
MFA is multi.
Yeah, multi-MFA.
Okay.
Yep. And so it's a double-check
One five.
system where you need 2 keys to open a door. So the idea I use this is at your house you may have a door lock and then a deadbolt lock. So the idea is if someone has your key, they need your deadbolt key to actually get in. You need both keys to get in. That's what multi-factor is. You're having 2 passwords to secure your stuff. Makes it more secure. A ransomware, bad software that locks your files and asks for money to unlock them. That's how it got the term ransomware. Is there, locks everything and says give us money and we'll give you your files back. And then that's pretty much what ransomware is. I advise never pay the ransom. Try to restore if you can. That's the biggest takeaway there. DDoS attack, distributed denial of service. So that is when too many people or things are trying to visit a website at the same time, causing it to stop working. It may happen where if a website gets a viral news story and a website gets a lot of popularity and they're not ready to handle it, you try to go to their website, maybe it doesn't load. It's because so many people are trying to go there at once that it just can't handle that amount of traffic. And so malicious people may do that as well, where they purposely are sending lots of requests to you just to try to clog up the drain, I guess you could say. So that's what the DDoS is just picture lots of people.
I've heard that happen to phone systems.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, they DDoS you and then it'll lower your quality because all this other little garbage traffic. Antivirus software, so that's a program that looks to stop bad software from harming your computer. There's different terms of it now. You might have heard like AV, but there's like EDR, endpoint detection and response, because it's not always just about your computer, things like that too. So you may hear other terms similar, but it's all just software designed to help protect your system from the bad stuff. Penetration testing, so like a safety drill, checking to see if someone could break into your computer system. So a pen test is like
Pen test is short for penetration?
Penetration test,
Yes.
yes. So the idea would be like you hired a professional thief to break into your house,
It's much more permanent than the pencil test.
and then when the thief finally does break into your house, rather than steal everything, they just tell you how they got in, so that way you can fix the ability for them to break in. I'm just going to go down to cybersecurity. So that's just keeping secure computers and online information safe from bad people. So there's the general field of what we're doing here. Cybersecurity is just trying to be secure in the cyberspace, is what the term means. Intrusion detection system, or IDS. So that's a watch guard for your computer network, barking when it sees something suspicious. So an intrusion detection system isn't necessarily going to stop a threat, but it will alert you to something suspicious. So, for example, an example I would use is you might have your email on your phone and on your computer. So if you log in on your computer, it may say you logged in from where we're located, Michigan. Now, if I log into my email on my phone, because of the cell phone towers, it may reroute to a different location. So it may say I'm logging in from Wisconsin, and there's this alert called impossible travel, where it's like, how did Tim log in on his computer and log in 4 hours away when only it's like 5 minutes later, right? That's impossible. So it's an alert you may get. It doesn't.
Tim just went 600 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So that's where those intrusion detection systems will detect weird anomalous behavior and then alert us to see, and then we can follow up to make sure it was legitimate or not.
Is that software? I'm sorry. Is that software?
Yeah, it's usually a software that we kind of configure. It's not necessarily software per se, but it's allowing certain software to integrate with your system and look through logs and then alert us. So yeah, it's all software in the back end. Botnet, you may hear that one. It's a group of computers controlled by someone else without the owners knowing it. And your devices may become part of a botnet if they're not secured. And the idea of this is, say you had a bunch of smart thermostats and they're all open to the world. Someone could, in theory, take over all those smart thermostats and then use them to do a DDoS attack at something. So if I'm going to attack a certain website, I may only have 10 computers to attack this website with. Well, if I can take over 100,000 smart devices and repoint them at this, now I have a giant net. It's basically like a swarm of bees all attacking something at once, and they're all doing a little bit of damage, but all together they can take something down because the power of all of them in quantity.
I heard of grandma power as well. So basically, that's like if your grandma or grandpa have like that old dinosaur of a computer that just kind of sits there and they just play like Farmville and check their email, but that thing hasn't had a patch update since like 2007. There's a lot of those out there, and if your grandma or your hacker, the wolf in sheep's clothes, sends out one of those hokey emails that's a chain, oh my gosh, you just got yourself a botnet, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
'Cause
I
yeah.
heard that might not be exactly it.
Yeah, because if they click a link, it may not be a malicious link to where it's like taking their data and phishing their data, right? Attacking them. But what they want to do is maybe just they'll install a little piece of software on their computer to know that attacker can then use that in part of
So
the
then they
botnet.
don't even know it's
They don't
there.
even know it because
Right.
it's not like it's
It's
popping
like totally
any flash
lateral.
ups. It's not anything, and it
Yeah.
just tries to use a little bit of resources so they can't tell that it's slowing down.
Mhm.
And so that's usually what botnets will do is they'll just find all these old devices on the internet and then repoint them.
Is
and
that
to use it for
space
attack.
thing a botnet?
Space thing?
But back in the day, you used to sign up.
Skynet.
No, I don't remember what it was called, but you used to sign up for it, and they would run this little piece. They would use a little bit of your resources to look for alien life or something like that.
Well, that's like you're purposely that's kind of like what
Is
a
that
botnet
still a
is.
thing? I don't
It's
even
not really
know.
a botnet.
Where do
it's
they
like,
look for it?
It's like
I don't know.
do the same thing with
Okay.
like folding, where you can have your computer run algorithms to try to solve mathematical equations to try to pool all your resources together to be kind of a supercomputer. So everyone's computer is doing a little part to try to solve this mathematical equation to try to further things. So they do the same thing with the space thing, where you could have had your computer run a program. That's not really a botnet because it's not being maliciously used to attack.
Oh,
something
botnets are
else.
specifically malicious.
Yeah, like they're using your
Okay.
computer to target someone else
Got it.
maliciously.
Because it's not ethical to do that in a blue hat hacker kind of way.
Because I've seen it where someone will take. I was talking about the Raspberry Pi is just a little computer that's like $100. I've seen a thing where they took like 10,000 of them and made a giant stack of them to run complex equations just for fun. So it's just anyway.
Power.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Unreal.
So the term that you may also hear is zero-day exploit. So that just means that you find a hole in the software before anyone else knows about it. So the idea is if you find a zero-day exploit and you're a hacker, that's like gold because now in theory you can run wild and take over people's systems. They don't even know what's happening. And then at the inverse of that on the defense, you find a zero-day exploit. They try to fix that immediately, instantly, and then we usually will patch against it if it's discovered that this is found. A lot of times people will find exploits and turn them in as part of what's called a bug bounty. And what that is where companies will purposely pay people money if they find holes and then inform them of it. So, it's like, so those things are out there as well. So 0 day just means that it hasn't been seen before. It's the first time this exists, and usually most systems are vulnerable to it for that little bit of time period until it gets patched. Patch management is just like putting band-aids on software to fix holes when hackers could get in. So patch management is more of like having a system in place that your computers, everything's just getting updated at the regular intervals to make sure that you're having all the security updates so your computers don't turn into botnets. Social engineering is tricking people into breaking security rules like a con artist. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the phishing earlier, where there's some phishing links you may get to your email, but then there's the social aspect where they may call into your help desk, try to convince you to give them a password they shouldn't, or reset their multi-factor, things like that, or even
you
try
have
to
go meet with HR. Click here to confirm an appointment or something. Scare ya.
Brute force attack is trying every possible key to unlock a door, and this is common with passwords. So, for example, if your password is only eight characters long, so what they'll do on a very simplistic standpoint is they're going to try a password 111, then they're going to try 111, 112, then they're going to try 111, 113, and they're going to try every single possible number in the thing. Then they also will put in the dictionary and try every single word in the known English language, and then they can put other languages in there as well, depending on where you're from, and then it will try every single one of them very, very quickly to try to log in and break your passwords. So that's why the length of your password is the single most thing you can do that will increase the security. And as much as you may use a capital and a lowercase and a period and all that stuff is very helpful, if you simply had a very long phrase like, my cat likes eating treats on Thursday. Like that's a crazy long sentence, but if you put that as your password for whatever reason, that is extremely hard to hack, even though there's no weird symbols in it, just due to the length of it with spaces and periods and all that kind of stuff as well. So
Interesting.
So so that's what a brute force attack is. They're trying multiple passwords very fast in order to try to crack your password.
I didn't know you could include spaces.
Yeah, space is a character.
Oh.
So when you make your long phrases, I just type it like a sentence to make it very easy to remember to type.
Okay.
Cool.
I learned something new.
I will sometimes
I'm now 6.
phonetically or incorrectly spell a word as part of my little phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yeah.
I like to do that with the security questions where like, where were you born? I'll put like my answer down as something random. Completely.
I was born in a potato.
I hate when you put one of your answers in for a security question in either caps or or not, and
And
then
it's
you just have to live with
case-specific
that
later.
decision forever.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
in its case specifics.
I always do all I always do all lowercase and stuff that makes absolutely no sense. That way there's no issue there.
Yeah, you're not supposed to tell the truth.
Yep. That way, if someone does fish your social media for like where you were born or your location, and you answered those questions honestly, they're not going to be able to guess because you put a wrong answer. And like, where were you born? I'll put in like the moon or something, right? Doesn't matter. So anyway, we have sandboxing. So sandboxing is a term you hear more in the security space. It's basically playing in a safe sandbox so that anything does go bad, it doesn't affect the rest of the playground. So the idea is you have a little portion of your computer you have as a sandbox or a separated computer system that you're testing on purpose, viruses and things like that, to see how the behavior without it allowing it to spread to the rest of your network. Threat intelligence is being a detective and learning about potential dangers to save safe. So threat intelligence is just, learning about the different behaviors of files and then looking for that on your system. If your system starts acting in that weird way, there could be an indicator that could be compromised.
Is that software too?
Yeah, it's all kind of baked into the new the EDR, MDR software that we have, like for example, Sentinel-1, because it uses AI and machine learning and all this stuff to look at. They call it IOCs, indicators of compromise. So there's certain indicators things can do that will be like, this is kind of weird and it shouldn't be happening. And if like you have 3 or 4 of those all at once, it makes it look
Part
like
of the
more
forensics.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
Interesting.
the idea would be like, say you typed your password in wrong. And it was like 8 in the morning on Tuesday when you normally are working. It's like, okay, well, Ginny messed her password up, no big deal. But now if we see that Ginny messed up her password at 2 a.m. on a Sunday and it was coming out of California, it's like, this doesn't make
This
if you
doesn't make
have
any sense.
multiple
Yep.
indicators all
Yep.
adding up, it makes it more of a severe threat, where one indicator by itself maybe not be a big a deal,
That
but when you start
software's
combining
smart.
them all, then it's like, okay, this is a real event we should look at.
We had an employee recently that was, they thought they were brute forcing because of the weird time of day and the number of attempts, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
We did?
So, yeah.
I don't
It was
Oh.
it was a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was,
I don't know.
which it was good, that it happened. But yeah.
And so I've seen that too, where it's on a loop. Like I had it where I came into work and then all of a sudden my 2-factor prompt, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm compromised instantly, right? Well, what happened was my home computer restarted, and when it restarted, it logged in and it was trying to do something. And so it was legitimate activity. But again, if you get like a 2-factor prompt on your phone and you didn't enter your password, that's a huge indicator. Red flags should go off. And do not approve that prompt, right? And try to figure out where the sign-in came in. You can look at your sign-in logs to look at all that and see where. And that's what I did, is I looked at the sign-in log and the IP address came from my house.
Yeah.
So I knew
I
it was
would also
legitimate.
ask him.
Yeah, whoever your security manager.
You're like, dude,
that kind of
what's
stuff,
going
yeah.
on?
So data breach is just when someone breaks in and steals information of your computer. You hear it in the news, data breach. All that just means is information was not only looked at, but then exfiltrated and taken off the computer and stolen. So then usually what hackers will do is take that data and sell it in bulk. They don't actually care about the data itself. They could care less, but they just care about the money they can make from the data by selling it to someone else who does want that data set.
Interesting.
Multi-factor authentication, just like 2FA, we talked about it earlier, just having multiple keys to get in the same door. So that way, if someone were to ever get your password and email combination, they don't have the actual phone, the secondary key layer to get in
Or the
and
face,
do that.
or the
the face, or the
fingerprint.
fingerprint, or whatever you have
Yep.
going on there. Yep. Incident response is a term that we use a lot, and that's just what to do when something bad happens. So much like a fire drill you do with your kids, where it's like your house is probably never going to burn down, but you want them to be aware of, you go here, you wait here in case this happens, that kind of a thing. You have a plan in place in case of a natural disaster or a ransomware event or something like that happens, to where if something were to happen, you're not all of a sudden thinking with emotions and trying to figure out what to do on the spot. You already have a plan you've practiced, so that way you can follow it much easier during an event. Vulnerability assessment, that's similar to the penetration test. It's checking for weak spots in your computer network, like checking for holes in defense. So a penetration test is a little bit more deep. That's where you actually will have, like, you hire someone specifically, they will target your house or your computer, that kind of thing, and really try to get in there. A vulnerability assessment is like a light version of that, where they'll do some scans, they'll kind of poke around with things, but usually it's not as intense as a penetration test, but it will still give you some information about where you can fix yourself and where the holes are that you can still patch and things like that.
Is our free security scan a vulnerability assessment?
It's like it is more of a vulnerability assessment than I would say a pen test. It's still both. It's like a mini pen test, because really when I think of pen test, I think of a
huge
specific
scale.
Yeah. I usually look at that as the Galactic Scan is more of a security risk assessment. They call them SRAs in the industry. So there's security risk assessment and then penetration tests. And those penetration tests is more of like a specific scope. Like you're like, can you get into my server and get my medical records, for example? That's like a pen test. They're trying what they can get to a specific thing, where a security risk assessment, they're looking at every door, every crack to see if a more generalized, it's still a deep thing, but it's more of a generalized overview, not a specific attack vector as much. And then you have SIEM, or some people call it SIEM. It's SIEM. Security Information and Event Management is a control center that watches over and reports anything unusual happening. So like that indicator of compromise we were talking, or the intrusion detection systems, basically you have a central hub that is taking all the data in from firewall, taking the data in from Microsoft land with your Microsoft accounts, maybe taking in firewall data. It's taking in all this different data. And then if they see any of those things that look fishy together, it can lead to more actionable events, where by itself, this may not mean anything, but when you combine 4 things together again, like Jenny forgot her password, but it was also at 3 a.m. and from a different location, all those things together then can create an actionable event. And so having those alert systems are very good. It's also actually extremely important for forensics after the fact, where if you ever did have a ransomware event or some sort of thing happened, having these SIEM event management systems, it's collecting all the logs, all that data. And so then you can go back in time to review it and figure out when exactly did they first get on the network, when exactly did they start installing software, all this other stuff, and you can make sure to get back to a point in time before the initial attack happened. Because a lot of times these hackers will get in your network and they actually just kind of hide. It's like someone hiding in your bushes for a couple hours before they break in. They're not going to like pound on your door right away when they're there. They're going to kind of wait and then see when they get their opportunity to attack, and then so you want to roll back before then. So long story short, SIEM is very important. Just if you're in the industry with a lot of compliance, like, so for financial institutions, healthcare, municipalities, things like that, having all those events and all those logs be collected is extremely vital for a post-incident response forensics, as well as helping to maybe nip something in the bud before it starts spreading with all those different things it's checking. So
That was beyond 5.
I know that was beyond 5. The last one there, I went off on a little
My
bit,
5-year-old brain went.
Yeah. That's my problem, is I'm
Steam
very
to sim.
technical, and so yeah. Basically, think of it as just a tower collecting all the logs of all the data, so that
The
way.
SIEM tower.
Yeah.
Why is it SIM? If it's SIEM, S-E-M.
I don't know. I've heard it say both names. I always say
SIM.
SIEM, but a lot of people just say SIM. But it's, to me, I say that as SIEM, but a lot of people have been saying SIM. So it just, I don't know. It's one of those things.
It's the guard
Tomato,
tower.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's the guard tower.
Yeah. It's the guard tower taking in all the information from all the scouts, and so that he's collecting all the information from every area at once to have a general overview.
Cool. Yeah. Well, now you know all the terms.
That's
all
right.
of them.
Probably went a little deep on some of those more than 5-year-old, but I tried my best. So if you have any follow-up or have any questions, obviously leave a comment, and I can go
absolutely
further on them. So.
We would love your comments and questions, so drop them, and then head on over to our website for your free security assessment, which is not a pen test.
That's all right.
Right?
Yep.
All right. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.